hosted by Brandy Pett.
Welcome, everybody. It's me, Brandy P, with the Yes, I Am the Veteran podcast. And hope everybody's having a great Thursday. I know it's been a wild week for me, so I can only imagine how everybody else has been faring. I hope everyone had a good Easter. I actually went to it's some of my friends call it Bikers Church, but I believe it's from the Ashes. It's the name of the church. And man, it was an amazing event. And it was really nice to meet everybody. And they can make some amazing brisket. And I believe the gentleman that was the one cooking it, there was a huge rainstorm, and he actually had to stay out in the pouring rain and a thunderstorm all night just to make sure that the smoker kept. And we have a new security dog around here. She prefers to be paid in treats, and also is pretty friendly. She come right up and knock. Kind of the fun thing about being in the country nowadays. And I can't wait to tell you guys more about our secret projects that we do have in the works. I've never been so excited to bring a knife build to be presented to a celebrity. So I'm excited to see how that works. And I'm very excited to have on regional ambassadors for Foundation 14. And I think it's really important, especially as a veteran, to have a sense of purpose after service. And having that sense of community, and especially living with PTSD, it definitely is a challenge. And it's always more beneficial to be surrounded by a community that understands. And so I'm very happy to bring onto the stage Big Country Doc and Miss Julie. Hey guys, how are you doing?
How's it going?
Good.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you guys are doing well. And so if you guys don't mind, I'd like to have you guys go around and introduce yourselves. And if you're military, let us know what branch.
All right. So my name is Matt Evans. A lot of people call me Doc. I've worked with the foundation for a number of years. I've been a strong proponent for what we do. I'm actually active duty Air Force. I'm a nurse practitioner by trade, so that's how we ended up down here in Texas. Our foundation it was started up in the state of Michigan, where we've existed in 4 states, but Texas is our biggest, our most recent kind of push. So me being new back to active duty, well, not new now, about 4 years now, it was a profound opportunity for us to come down here, show what the foundation is about, and hopefully expand our mission and our footprint down to this area and continue this important mission.
Awesome. Thank you, brother.
I am Julie. I'm Matt's wife. And what he forgot to mention for today is that he was just appointed major in the Air Force.
Selected.
Congratulations.
So that's awesome. But we moved down here, like you said, to San Antonio. It's been a phenomenal area to shoot off Foundation 14 for this area. It's been just great. But yeah, we've been married for I don't know how long.
A little over 10 years.
Oh, 10 years or so. But a little ditty about it is, for me, I didn't really like motorcycles for a long time until I got involved with the Foundation 14, and it provoked me to get my own 3 bikes. So yeah, it's been a great journey thus far. So
awesome. The man, the myth, the legend, Big Country. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. I'm Randy Griffin, affectionately known as Country. I met these two strictly by chance, with me meeting up some of my other friends about 2 years ago, and they shared the mission with me. I'm an Air Force veteran of 12 and a half years, so fell in love with the mission, with what they do, and I've been involved ever since.
Awesome. And yeah, you're definitely a force to be reckoned with behind the microphone, sir.
It's what I do 40 hours a week.
Well, definitely, it suits you very well.
Thank
And
you.
it's very rare that we have all Air Force on this podcast. And it's funny because I'm Air Force as well. But you tend to interview every other branch but Air Force. It's not like I, segregate or try to separate branches. It just happens to work out that way. I don't know why. And so, what would you say? How did you become a volunteer or regional ambassador for Foundation 14?
I saw these 14s patches on their vest, and it's not your typical club patch or rider organization patch. So I was curious, and so as they explained about what Foundation 14 does and the mission and who they support, it kind of registered with me. I'm a life member of the AMVETS veteran organization, similar to American Legion or the VFW, and there aren't any posts here locally. So trying to find an organization where I can match my interest up and where their mission dovetails with what I believe in, it just happened to being in the right place at the right time, I guess. And the rest has kind of been history.
Well, sometimes I believe things happen for a reason. You don't always know what that is, but you're usually pretty amused when you realize that it was for a purpose. And what about you, Matt?
Well, my story is a little different. It's actually probably a little bit more textbook for a lot of people that find the foundation. When I separated the first time, I got out in 07. I got my nursing degree. I moved to Michigan. That's where my wife is from. It was a place that I knew nobody, and there are different pockets that I interacted with, but as a rider, as somebody who's been riding since I was 24, I really didn't ride with anybody. I went to these random bike nights, knew nobody there. I remember seeing early on in the foundation's existence, our founders Jay and Maria really pushing for their initial events, and this was early on in, I want to say 2016, and I knew of them. I interacted with them in different social circles, but generally didn't have a strong kinship with people in general at the time. I had no real roots or groups to cling to. So as a rider, sometimes some people are lone wolf riders. They ride for themselves and they do their thing. And while I was involved in some organizations that rode, there were people that I served with that were in other parts of the country. So it was rare that I got to see them. People that I interacted with, I would ride by myself to bike nights and different events. I remember the first guy I met that was really involved in the foundation was my buddy Andy Amaral. Good dude. Sometimes we call him the Winter Soldier because he's got that look. And he knew of a lot of the organizational people pretty well, talked about it on occasion. He said, "Hey, why don't you come out and check out the event, because there's an event coming up." And it was probably their third event that they had. I missed the first two for either I was out of town or there was it was just I didn't know it was happening. And this is a story that happens with a lot of people. Is I came to my first event and I was hooked. The people, the event charisma, the recipient, watching a veteran get put on a motorcycle changes how you appreciate the veteran community and the things that people do for those veterans. Early on, I was not a fan of nonprofit organizations that represented veterans, and so I had I knew people that worked for them. I knew how they worked and how they operated, and I had a pretty strong distaste. So when you see an organization start from the ground up and the people involved in that organization and the commitment and the passion that they put into that immediate thing, it influenced my desire to be more involved in that veteran community and actually be able to look back at my own service differently than I was before that. And so, you being Air Force, all of us are Air Force, and we're not huge. We're not huge combat type of roles typically. We don't always deploy to what most would consider combat zones. I did a deployment. It was to Qatar, still classified as a combat zone, but the Air Force doesn't give us the same type of paperwork. So that fell me out of favor with a lot of organizations that were veteran focused, a lot of combat focused veterans. But a lot of the people that I deployed to Qatar with, and it was still a deployment, did go up north and they did do certain things, and they came back kind of messed up. So I consider myself lucky to that degree, but it was always a hard correlation with me getting out and finding kinship with veterans that did things that were a lot stronger or harder than I went through. And so rectifying that stuff was always a tough sell for me. And so it really took the foundation and the interactions I had with them to really form that kinship with these people, many of whom did see some stuff, and many of whom did, need an outlet. I didn't need an outlet, but I needed people, and I think that that's what really sold me on the foundation. What sold me on the people was the people that were involved in it, and that interaction that we could develop and maintain.
And you're very right. I think that a lot of us, we really miss that sense of community and having someone that you can call, or a place that you can go to really help drive you forward. And I think that it is very needed, and that's why seeing what it is that you do by attending an event recently, you're absolutely right. It is extremely powerful to see a veteran moved to tears, and I've never seen so many people so excited to watch a veteran be presented a motorcycle. Like, everyone was excited, and the support that the organization has, it's quite rare to see in the nonprofit world. You may see them for a few events, and I've done many for many different nonprofits, but the support that you have, it is truly it's truly rare. And I think that it really shows that what you're doing and what you're working with organizationally, it's an amazing thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm definitely happy that you guys were able to come on tonight. And what about you, Julie? So what's one thing that maybe that you learned when you were first starting to ride? Because I know you said you're kind of fairly new to it.
Yeah. Well, I want to kind of pipe in a little bit on what Matt just said, is that he wasn't really looking for people or whatever, but at the end of the day, when he found the foundation, I was going through cancer, breast cancer, and during my treatments, I wasn't feeling good, and he needed to be out on that bike. And one of our really good friends, Bobby, will repeat this often, but when I finally felt better to get out there and meet the foundation, I told Bobby that I really didn't like the foundation because they took my husband away. And I kind of remember that message. But, when you're sick, you don't want people to stay with you, but you want them to go. And then when they leave, you're like, oh, he left. And but it was fine because I wanted him to have people. So it did help him at the time. But seeing that energy when he would return from the events, like he was just so excited. And we went through some hard times when he didn't have people to ride with. He felt a certain way. He couldn't find a group or people to, connect with. And when he found the foundation, he was so excited and he could not wait for me to feel better to get there. And when I finally was able to get out, it was in October, and I watched one of our recipients, Rob Streeter, get his bike, and that was at Tecumseh Harley in Michigan. And I was hooked immediately. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And then we went to an after party at one of our friends' houses, and I met everybody, and they all knew what was going on with us, and they were so friendly and welcoming and genuine.
Yes.
And that's what we're trying to continue, right? Is that genuine interest in our volunteers, because they're really our friends, right? So with all that being said, watching the effect of the bike and the wind therapy, I had no idea. And I was empowered, and I was like, I'm getting a bike. So I signed up for a rider class and got a bike. And at the time, I couldn't stop. In fact, I did. I think that was in 2018. In October 2018, I did my rider class in spring 2019, and I ended up doing an iron butt in August 2020. So an iron butt, riding your motorcycle for 1,000 miles in 24 hours. So I did that from Ann Arbor, Michigan to Sturgis, South Dakota, with my husband. And it was
a solo run, last year?
And then I did a solo run,
Wow.
San Antonio to Phoenix. And I don't regret any of it. It's
desert. It's a lot of desert.
What's that?
They call it Afghanistan when I was stationed at Cannon, New Mexico.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Similar terrains.
But I mean, that's been my interest, is just identifying, I suppose, on my non-military end, knowing the PTSD, I suppose, and the chronic condition that I'm dealing with, and getting that wind therapy. It's never going to be equal to what a war fighter has experienced, but I feel it and I know it, and just getting on the bike for 5 miles is like, I needed that.
And it's amazing to see you whenever I see you, especially when I saw you most recently. I mean, you were like the party. You were like, it was just so fun to see like how much joy that it brought you, and I'm sure that having that sense of community, especially when you were going through your cancer journey and recovery, it probably meant a lot. And I wouldn't know specifically because I'm not you, but I can imagine that it was very helpful.
Yeah, it is.
And so is Foundation 14 a national nonprofit, or is it only available regionally for veterans in around this area? I know you had touched on it a bit earlier.
Yeah, so we are a federal 501c3 nonprofit organization. So we are incorporated in the state of Michigan, but across the board we are federally recognized as a nonprofit. And so from a donation perspective and from that angle, we have an EIN number that is a 501c3, and that's how we operate, and that's what we do.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. And so, what kinds of modifications does Foundation 14 do for veterans in need? Because one thing that I found was very interesting, what I have learned when I had spoken with you all, is that you do some modifications for veterans with impingements if they're eligible. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. So, full disclosure. Unfortunately or unfortunately, there's only been a handful of bikes that we've had to like technically modify out of all of our recipients. So, to date, I believe the estimate is about 28 veteran partners total. About 3 or 4, I could be mistaken on the exact numbers, were actually modified motorcycles to fit them from that perspective. So, at the end of the day, when we are talking about a recipient, our goal is to get them on a motorcycle that fits them or that works for their situation. And so if there is a modification that needs to be made, if they need a trike or if they need some form of other modification like an adjusted clutch lever or shifting mechanism or something like that due to a lost limb or other type of things, those are things that we've worked with our service people over the years to accommodate,
Awesome.
figure out, make it happen. One of our earlier recipients, quote, I say quote because that was the first one that we had to modify. Also, he had technically owned the bike, so it was a community that came together kind of before the foundation became the foundation that made that happen. And so he lost his, I believe, his left foot, and he had trouble with the shifting mechanism, and they made that happen early on. This was before my time, but it's a lot of the story that I've heard time and time again from so many people that were involved at that level.
Awesome.
And so those are things that we can accomplish. There's not always a fix for everybody, unfortunately. And even being down here in Texas, I hear people that come out with some very unfortunate circumstances. And this being, military city USA, a lot of people retire here. And there are probably some of the worst war injuries that came from Afghanistan and Iraq. And so when you hear those stories and you can't fathom what you could possibly do for them, it's probably the most unfortunate thing that I run across down here. But we do. I always tell people we try our best to tailor the bike to the rider. What kind of bike do you feel that you need, and then how can we help you to get there if we select you as a recipient?
That's awesome. I can definitely understand how needing modifications could impinge or potentially delay someone that maybe wants to ride personally, because I know I wanted to learn to ride a motorcycle before I went into the military. I did not take motorcycle safety class in my state, which is Wisconsin. To have a motorcycle, you had to take the course, but it was like a 2 or 3 year wait to get into the class because there were so few spaces. Mm-hmm. And after the military, I had foot drop, unfortunately, and it was not combat related, but I've had an interesting time getting suggestions for a motorcycle enthusiasts or builders themselves, where I'm like, well, I can't shift, because usually you would shift with your left foot. So how could I do that? And they're like, well, a suicide shift or an air shift, but there's a reason it's called a suicide shift. And I was like,
yeah. I mean, but those are all modifications that people have figured out to some degree, right? And and they call it a suicide shift, but it's it's functional for some people.
Yeah. It's all about making it work, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of it for sure.
And so I'll ask this to country. So can you tell us a little bit about the Right to Right program?
The Ride to Right program.
That's right.
Yeah. Everyone has the right to ride, right? And in a nutshell, part of what we do is that win therapy. And we don't want to deprive anyone of the opportunity to ride on 2 wheels or 3 wheels, if that be it. So That Ride to Right program is a part of them being nominated, vetted, and then, as Matt was eloquently describing, getting a bike that fits them, that fits their needs. Um, Part of the nomination program, again, on our foundation14.org page, is for anyone can be nominated. Um, and then from there, the nomination package gets reviewed. We get to know them a little bit to find out what, as Matt was saying, what they're interested in. We want to take a guy that's 240 and put him on a little tiny sports. So we want to make sure that the equipment fits the individual, or someone small frame and put them on a large bike. So with that Right to Ride, we just want to make sure that everyone uh, has the right to ride. And one of the old sayings that I like to say is, we always see that dog with his head out the window and the tongue flapping in the wind. And we always wonder, how does that feel? I think riding a motorcycle is probably the closest you will ever get to how that dog feels, with his head hanging out the window and the tongue just flapping in the wind. And so that's what our strive is for, to get these veterans on these motorcycles. They get them in the community that understands them, that can relate to them. Whenever I have the opportunity to speak with organizations on behalf of Foundation 14, one of the things that I lead with is that PTSD is for real. It's one of those disabilities, and I hate to say disability, but it's one of those things that affects every individual that suffers from it differently, and you don't see it with the naked eye.
Yep.
A lot of times it just goes by as, yeah, they're just kind of quiet, they're an introvert, they're reserved, but no one really takes the time to find out the why behind that. And with Foundation 14, not only do we find out that why, but we surround them with a group of individuals that understand what they're going through, that's there to support them 24/7 in a time of need. And we provide them with activities and fellowship with other riders to get them out, to get them involved locally in their community, or if it's just a one-on-one riding with someone else, just to get them out to ride. So at the end of the day, that's kind of what that Right to Ride program is all about. Just getting them out there, getting them on 2 wheels or 3 wheels.
Powering veterans. One of five.
I will say I do want to like tack on that too, is that part of that vetting process is making sure that it meets the mission that we've set out. So we've set out a narrow mission early on, and I think it happened because organically. But part of that vetting process is, a lot of people ask me like, what does it take? What do you have to be? Like, what's your background have to be in order to qualify? So, at the very least, our requirements are they must have been deployed to a combat location. There's not a requirement that they must have been under fire, have certain service ribbons, et cetera, but they must have served in a combat location. And really at the end of the day, the point is to, not everybody's going to be under fire. So the effects of PTSD affect people differently. And so when they do deploy, like they're anticipating, like, I'm going to war. That doesn't mean they're all going to be under fire or all under mortar fire or all under the same effects, but they are still anticipating that I could not come back from this deployment. And so they're, whether they operated in a support role or they operated in an in combat type of role, those are the veterans that we have focused on for as far as the recipient goes, the Right to Ride program, specifically, to clarify that, we recognize that deployment causes post-traumatic stress, whether it was, whether it was the family situation, the work situation, the what you went through situation to prepare for it, or even how long it took you to acclimate to how you came back. You're a changed person when you go through that. And so those are the people that are technically our recipient baseline. And then from there, it's about figuring out the logistics of the other things within that Right to Ride program. So.
And that's an amazing program. It really is. And so I did want to play the clip of when you did present the veteran at the bike presentation ceremony, if you guys would like. But yes, I just couldn't get over just how happy he was. Like his year was made, no question.
So before you play that, I want to actually say something real quick. So Sergeant Hockenbarger was the recipient that was chosen this time around. And I want to just give you a backdrop because he is a Bronze Star recipient and a Gold Star family member. And he did some amazing things while deployed. He's a leader in his community. He's still active duty, and I think that he was the first still active duty recipient that we've chosen as a person. So I always want to hit that hard because, like, it doesn't, they're not the people that live among us with these issues. They're not always necessarily just veterans. They're active duty service members that are still dealing with stuff. And so any opportunity that we can get them on, as soon as possible is super important. He's a leader in everything that I've ever seen of him. And it was a pleasure to see that all unfold, and see the people that actually recommended him for a bike, was, just an incredible outpouring. So I'll let you continue. So I just wanted to.
Oh no, absolutely. I love to hear things like that. And I was wondering, I was like, he looks pretty young, but it's hard for me to judge. I was medically retired at 25, so
He's younger than I am, that's for sure. Because I did 9 years and then had a 14-year break in service. So
if I could have done that, you're better than me, brother. I think after 5, I would have been like, I don't know if I can do that anyways. All that's off to you there. So I'm going to go ahead and present it now. It was a little bit too big to load in my video, so I'm just going to present it from my TikTok really quickly. I'll do that right now. And I'll show a close-up of the bike as well afterwards.
No, she wants us to go to bed.
She wants to go in her bed.
No, she wants us.
Hey, Smokey! Smokey, if you can hear me, we got the answer. Why don't you go take a look at that little shiny little piece of thing over there? Let us know what you think about it. By the way, y'all, this is the first time he's seen this bike. He has no idea.
I need to talk a little bit about this bike. There's a really good guy named Frankie who runs a company called Bond Customs. Him and his son actually has some motorcycles together. It's really cool. He did that too. He also makes custom seats, so anybody who is looking for food will work on customs for that.
They just tire flip here, then they just slide out.
Smokey donated that motorcycle. You're solid dude for doing that. We appreciate it. So, that bike doesn't just come with, a motorcycle, right? But our goal is to get you out, get you on the road, give you access to freedom, give you something for you and your family, hopefully improve your life and see where you're going. So, one of our traditions is we have this, it's called the Van Belsen helmet. he's a guy that used to hang out with the organization and go up to their events, and unfortunately he died on a road going home in an area of Michigan we call Midlandsburg. His mom donated a motorcycle helmet to the organization, and since then, anybody who's received a bike has their name placed on that helmet. We passed that for previous recipients on to new recipients, and they keep going down the line. So, Bruce, Anthony Kamisi, he is one of our recipients. He's here to pass that helmet on. I want to that helmet, we need to name on it. We appreciate all you do. Hi, if you want to say something, you're welcome to.
Thank you to everyone that's here. Thank you to everyone that's here. Okay. Mom and dad are here.
So, powerful stuff. Sorry for the quality of that video. But I want to
it was a little tough with where the speakers were set up. It's hard to hear, it was hard to hear a lot that day, but it was such an incredible turnout, and so many people were, again, seeing is believing.
Yes, absolutely. It very much is.
We couldn't have asked for better weather, but everybody was under the overhang.
It was so hot.
I was a lobster that day. I was amazed. It didn't turn into a lobster speak.
Yeah.
But no, it was beautiful weather, and it was an amazing ceremony to watch. And thank you guys for letting me speak. And I'm glad that I didn't entirely trip over my words that day.
No, you did. You did
good.
Incredible.
Great.
What impressed me was when Hawk got up there and he actually picked up on even your own words, and he was able to articulate something right off the bat. And I was just like, that's pretty incredible.
Yep, I learned I learned a lot about Parallels to Steel with the Reforged program when I took it, and some of it kind of stuck with me a bit. I kind of modified it over time, but I think that it is it's truly an amazing feeling to see another veteran or anyone really that has had to overcome PTSD, and to be nominated, and to be given something truly amazing, or presented something truly amazing. It warms your heart, just to see something like that. It's like a community come together because of this amazing nonprofit. So
yeah,
good job, guys.
It was so much fun to put together, and I think our volunteers really did such an incredible job. Organizing. We worked for at least a couple months every weekend, getting together and getting these bikes squared away. And that picture that you just showed, that was a bike from our very first recipient in the state of Texas. His name is Bean. We've since done some modifications for him to that bike to make it look even nicer. But the impact that these have on these veterans is incredible. The amount of work that goes in to make this happen, and the people involved that see what we do and want to be involved and are sold on it. It's just been an absolute excitement and an incredible outcome from what we've seen from everybody. So it is truly a great showing.
It is. It very much is. And I just those are some beautiful bikes. Yeah, I bet they get a lot of attention just being on one that night.
They're fun and they're good bikes. They and those two bikes were very incredible. I wish I had an updated picture of Bean's bike because he stretched out the bags and we put some nice little paint job on it. It's not black anymore, but it's a pretty nice little ride. So
It's one of those you know it if you saw it kind of things, huh?
oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
I remember standing in the back watching the presentation, and I had gotten stopped by a veteran, and they had asked some questions, and I was like, I'm looking for because I know that there was a maker that had donated a blade for I believe it was a silent auction,
Mhm.
and because I know a lot of the bladesmiths here, and so I was like, I think I know that dude. It wasn't exactly my term, but I was like, I think I know that guy's work. I'm like who is I'm like, is it this person? And he goes, I'm the guy. Nice. I did the raffle basket. I won one of his blades, and now I'm like, oh man.
That's good.
Now I'm gonna have to have him come on the show because that was a beautiful, beautiful blade as well. It was an American flag with over Damascus, so it was
That was a wonderful. Yeah, that was beautiful.
And props to Texas Blades for those donations because they did some really cool stuff and they definitely they've come through for us for a few events. I think that was the first event we were able to coordinate where they could actually be there to like sell their own stuff, but they're very busy but they're incredible to the veteran community, but also the broader a lot of these nonprofit communities that they help out and donate to. So Texas Blades, they just kill it, and they do really good work, and it's just they're always like a good reliable company and organization to work with.
Always. I've never seen Texas Blades, but I've met the gentleman from Texas Knife Makers Guild. Maybe I was thinking that they were the same because I was looking at the name quickly. But I was like, I think I know all those guys. Like I just saw them at the hammering where we had a blade, like a bladesmith showdown. You had 30 minutes. You had to make a bottle opener and a blacksmith's knife in 30 minutes. But they got to me and they ran out of steel, and I was like, I think that was on purpose.
Yep.
But it's always fun to empower veterans in many different ways, and I don't know, just something about going in the forge. I'm not over the fact that I'm getting that engraved. I'm still like, it's making me laugh trying to even think about what I'm going to put on this block. I have not laugh at me, but and all I'm thinking in my mind is I'm like, I have to do this like a veteran, and I gave it like a call sign because I've spent so much time with that blade. It has its own name now. Moby Dick is his name. I'm gonna have to explain to James like what it means and why, and he's gonna laugh pretty hard when he realizes that that blade comes off the block. It's not just a cigar guillotine; it's also other things. But so I'll go around and just ask you each how can wind therapy be beneficial to a veteran with PTSD? And keep in mind if maybe this veteran has never ridden before.
Well, I'm probably the lowest rider, I suppose, out of the cumulative.
You probably got a solid amount of miles though. Like what, you got 5,000 in 2 years? That's impressive.
Well, but I mean, between these guys, they're probably very high up there. But I'll say it just for me. I mean, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I would ride behind Matt, be a 2-up, and that was fine. But I just didn't really love it, right? It was fine to be with him and do whatever, but the ability to just get on my bike and go and stop where I wanted to stop and just feel, I don't know what it is. It's just feeling that wind. I can go up the street to a park on my bike, and I'm just like instantly relieved of any pressures that came from normal day life. My husband recently gifted me a trike for Christmas, just because I was feeling like I couldn't really ride my motorcycle consistently due to some of the side effects. Um, and just riding up to McAllister Park here and learning my trike, I just felt so rejuvenated and so alive. And that was like in December. Um, so just, I think it's just being out in the air and being outside of your head, looking at the ride and where you're going, and I don't know. I guess I'm at a loss for words, really. But
Well, what about you, Doc? What would you say?
The interesting thing is I have a medical background, so I have some general knowledge about the human psyche and all of that and the effects of these things. But I also want to look at what I've seen in other people. Right, I don't have PTSD. I my experience, my original military career was largely good. I did fine. I got out. I had a plan. I had a goal. I had things that I accomplished. I was able to come back in. But what I do know is what I've seen in other people, and so and I'll throw our newer friend Daniel under the bus on this one. And so Daniel was not explicitly out there at the presentation. And what people may not know is that Daniel actually put about 2 to 3 days worth of work into that motorcycle, polishing it, making it look pretty. It is a used bike, but but he had a really good base to work with, and he made that bike look new.
Yeah, Joe.
And he did a lot of work on that motorcycle. And I'm not talking about the work that he put into that bike, because he was so proud of that bike. He couldn't actually stay for the entire event at the end and where everybody was there, because he was blown away by the amount of work and the overall presentation. But what I have seen in him is a change in his personality. And so he knows people from the foundation from Michigan. And so when he lived up there for a little while, he was going through some tough times. He eventually moved down here to San Antonio, and Maria, one of the founders of the organization, reached out and said, "Hey, there's this guy named Daniel. A few of us know him. He's interacted with a lot of people, some really OG people that have been involved in the organization, some older recipients, etc. If you guys have an opportunity, you should reach out to him and just kind of interact with him." He was very standoffish. He's a nice guy. Came up, hung out with us for a little bit at the Legion, and in Converse, and talked to us and interacted. And I said, "Cool, nice guy." And then he kind of fell off again. Probably, I'd say 2 months before the presentation, 2 months, 3 months, he reached out to me randomly and said, "Hey, dude, I would like to get out and do something. What do you guys got going on?" And I said, "Well, we got a meeting on Sunday. We're talking about this presentation. Do you want to come out?" And he came out and he hung out, and he's a very unique personality. He's a good dude, but not always. Everybody has to learn new people. And so he came out. Didn't come out the next week, but he came out, I think, the week after that, and then slowly was coming out more often. Probably about 3 weeks before we got the presentation, I have an extra motorcycle. I said, "Hey, dude, you need to get out of the house a little bit. Let's come on over. You can take my wife's Fat Boy." So he took the Fat Boy out. the smile on his face,
And he hasn't stopped talking about it.
and he's not stopped talking about
Love
it.
it.
The smile on his face was
You could see it
a
a mile
changed
away.
person. And I thought he was going to come out and hop on that bike and we'd ride to whatever event we were going to. I can't even remember. I know, we were just riding up to Hill Country. We were just riding up to Hill Country. We stopped at one place. We rode around, came back, and I said, "Hey, I really got to go. I really want to go to this this event over at Cycleplex off of 10. Sure, I'll go." And he's a guy that's been pretty much in the house for a while. I'll go. Okay, cool. He came with me. That night, we were at Cycleplex for a while. Infidels was having their own little bike night get together. And I said, "Hey, if you really want to go back to the house, I can get you back to the house, and you can take your car and go home if you want." I said, I want to go to Infidels to say hi. Like, sure, I'll go. Stuck it out, kept on going. I didn't think he was going to make it. I couldn't believe he stayed that long. We got back eventually to my house. We decided to go over to a place nearby, hopped on his car and drove over to the place that we were going and hung out for another hour or two. Since then, he's not stopped talking. He's ridden Julie's Fat Boy a couple times. He was renting a little sports bike. He's a sport bike guy, so that's kind of his jam. So somebody he knows up in Killeen runs a shop up there, so rented him a motorcycle that he could ride that was more his style. He's been riding it since. And so now the proof is not in his reaction. That's proof, right? But I always say in healthcare, we give people medication, right? And for a lot of different things. And PTSD, depression, anxiety, all those things medications do have their place in the right person in the right circumstance. And I always tell people, sometimes they say the medication's not working or it's not quite there or I don't feel right on the medication. But I always say, how you feel is different. How are people around you reacting to how you feel?
Yep.
And sometimes that reaction is actually really impressive. And so we had him and his girlfriend and their kids come over, and she pulled, I think, Julie aside and said, when he started riding her motorcycle and eventually started riding another motorcycle, he has completely changed at home for the better. He has purpose.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He has purpose. He has something to do.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah, something to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when we see that change and we say, how is this affecting you? But also, how is this affecting everybody around you? That's a good indication that it's working.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much. So Gigi says, living, breathing, and riding on the open road gives you the feeling of freedom, the caged-in feeling that PTSD tends to cause in many of us. Those of us that have our own personal relationship with God use that time to have a conversation with Him.
Yep.
Awesome.
I love that.
That's my wife. Yeah, I'll send her the link. Hi, honey.
What she said,
Oh, I love
right
it.
in the country, she's having conversations with God.
She has her own bike as well.
I love it. Yay.
But you're asking about, I guess, how it makes, what do we see in them? And I think riding a motorcycle or wind therapy gives them not only that sense of independence to be able to get out and go, but a lot of folks, I've been asked, why is it that when two motorcycles pass, you do the two fingers down and you kind of do the little biker wave at them, and you never meet a stranger on a motorcycle.
No.
If they're on two wheels or three wheels, that instant bond, you've got something to talk about, you share experiences, and it's instantaneous. And it doesn't matter if I'm on a Harley and they're on a Honda or a Yamaha. For that matter, I pull up to traffic lights and have been right next to a guy on a moped or a scooter, and we talk for the 60 seconds that we're there about being out riding and what a nice day it is. So the fact that you're out on two wheels gives you that camaraderie, you make friends, and some of your friends turn out to be lifelong friends that you never ever would have thought about it. AK these two that have become that for me, just happened to meet them by chance with me meeting up with some of the other friends that I had known, for a hill country ride.
Yep.
So it does give them the ability to get out of their own space, meet new people, get involved somewhat in the community, make friends, and just kind of put that PTSD behind them for a little while, to show that life goes on. As we say, keep moving, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's our thing. Keep moving, and so it kind of leads to that.
Yep. One step at a time, one day at a time. Sometimes is what you can do. And I think I always tell people often that if it's a famous quote that if you take a step forward and you flat on your face, you still move in the right direction.
Right.
And it may have paraphrased a bit, but it definitely, I do believe holds true. And I did not say this in my speech at the event, but I wish I had, and I was kind of upset. But because I forgot, I was more focused on like not cursing or, like forgetting what I was supposed to say. It's hard to behave sometimes for me.
We'll never tell you not to curse. There are worse things that have been said in the past publicly.
But that's
yourself.
Be yourself. Yes.
Yeah. Sometimes being
As
myself.
Maria says, be real with us.
Sometimes being myself has got me blacklisted, including this podcast.
We call that being armband at Foundation 14.
Yes.
Oh, nice. I feel better about that now. But I truly appreciate it. I've always appreciated the support the biker community has for the military veteran or the military community, and if it's I've been raising funds for homeless women veterans or to help the Women Veteran Calendar, which has now helped 6 different nonprofits in the last 2 years. Or even to get tattoo veterans, they're the first ones to step up and support, and it's truly it's truly appreciated, and I think that the community itself, like you're very right. I mean, a lot of people, they would see a biker, they make assumptions. Well, maybe they're not approachable, but quite the opposite is true. A lot of times, as long as you're respectful to them, they're extremely friendly and they'll talk to you like they've known you a very long time. And it's something that it's a lot of people seem to have misconceptions, or maybe some people, but at the end of the day, it's one big family, definitely.
Yes. Yep.
And so do you guys have any upcoming events coming in the future?
We have a few things that were anticipated. So we're going to plug Michigan for a second here. I know we're in Texas, but Michigan has our annual Ride for the Fallen that's happening over Memorial Day weekend. And that was probably our first, it used to be our inaugural event for the season until we were kind of able to do things in other states. So Texas, fortunately or unfortunately, has the luxury of riding longer. But that's a big event for us. It's our annual poker run up there, and it's a really big deal for anybody who's in the state of Michigan to go to Milan, Michigan, and check that out. It's a really good event, and again, raising good money for a really solid nonprofit. For us locally here in the state of Texas, so we are anticipating a bike night that's going to start the first Friday of June.
Okay.
It's going to be at Charlie Brown's Neighborhood Bar and Grill over off of Starcrest and near Wurzbach Parkway. And that will occur the first Friday of every month. And so we're still finalizing some stuff on that, but it will start the first Friday of June. And then past that, for our next local ride is going to be what we call our annual Freedom Ride, and that's going to occur
September 27th.
27th of September. That is still being discussed as far as the specifics on it, but it will be announced very soon. So those are kind of our local things that are happening that are super important. As a good steward of the American Legion, also, the American Legion is hosting their annual Texas State Rally in Kerrville. On which day is that?
The first weekend of May. It's coming up. So like May 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah. So Foundation 14 has been strongly supported by the American Legion. So we will have a booth.
Oh, that's awesome.
Up there, and we will be selling gear, and we will be partaking in all of the events. All three of us are actually Legion members now, and Country was one a long time ago, and then rejoined. So, and the American Legion has been really good supporter of the foundation from our perspective down here in Texas for a lot of reasons. They were among the first, organizations to donate to us down here. And so giving them that props and recognition is super important. And that's why we're going to be there at that event. That state rally is a big deal. So, it's mostly for Legion members, but if you're, if that's an area that you're interested in, or you want to just go on those really cool rides, I'm sure they take anybody that will come in and sign up for that ride and donate to that organization. So they're a really good organization for a lot of veterans, especially.
Yes, absolutely. And they give they connect veterans to other resources, which is something that is appreciated, especially if you don't know or you want to know more about an organization. They have a lot of the links, and they are very big in education and getting the information out and highlighting what other organizations are doing, as well as service members.
Yep, absolutely. So that's the gist of our kind of upcoming things that I can think of.
Awesome. Sounds like you got some pretty cool stuff happening. I definitely miss poker runs up north where I'm from in northern Wisconsin. They do them for all kinds of things, and from four-wheelers to motorcycles, you name it, they have them. I hope Texas follows suit in the future. And before we do wrap everything up tonight, I did want to let everyone know that may have questions about this nonprofit. Definitely check out the scrolling banner down here. For those listening, it's www.foundation1414.org. And if you guys have any questions, be sure to reach out. And if you guys have questions for the podcast, let us know, and I will route it their way as well. And I'm going to ask final thoughts from everybody. I know I did keep you guys on a little later, and I do apologize. But there's so much good information, and it's so important to get that information out there. And so what would you say that your final thought would be, Miss Julie, maybe for someone that's curious or just in general about what it is you do?
I think just since our last event, there's been several texts and messages that have come through like, hey, I wanna be a member, or I wanna volunteer. Do it. We will get back with you and let you know when our next meeting is. Matt and I and Country are trying to do consistent meetings, but we needed to give our volunteer group a little bit of a break after the last event. But we're gearing up, and I've gotten so much benefit myself out of just being a part of this organization, and I have zero regrets. So it gives me a ton of purpose, and it's work, but there's a lot of gratitude out of it. So just reach out, let us know if you want to be a part of us.
You're so fun too at events. I love looking for you every time.
It's fun even away from events.
Here, hold on.
It's a 24/7 show.
Oh,
Yes.
I get that feeling. I get that personally. It felt personal. And
I just want to say, I'm sorry, we don't have members and there's nothing to join.
Yeah.
So just come out and volunteer. Just come be a part of it. It's a great organization with a fantastic mission. And, if you just attend one of the events, it touches your heart.
Seeing is believing.
Yeah, seeing is believing.
Yep. Get in where you fit in.
I fit in nowhere, but I try my best to entertain myself.
You fit in everywhere.
And even with that, right? And I tell people all the time, when you look at us, we are a nonprofit organization first and foremost, with a focus on veterans riding, and we have some criteria for that, but that is our focus, to build that community, build that support, build that camaraderie, build that family. And so when we and at the end of the day, there are some things that we, Julie and I have a patch. We are not a club. We're not an RC. We're not an MC. We do not have members, like Country articulated. And so the big thing is like, understand that we are a collective group of people that all want to see veterans riding, combat PTSD with the same goals and missions. And hopefully, the less veteran suicide out there, the less people that we have to be concerned about, the better off this community is. And so we want your veterans. We want you to recommend people. It doesn't matter what state you're in. We have outreach options in anywhere that we need to figure out. But we as a nonprofit, we don't exist without donations, but we also don't exist without things to put those donations towards. And per our mission, those veterans riding is our mission. And so please, if you know somebody that would benefit from wind therapy, recommend them. Go to our website, go to the recommendation tab, give us as much information about them, because the more information I have that we have as an organization, the easier it is to vet them. The more veterans that we have to vet, the more bikes that are, we can easily choose from and get out there. So if we don't have those veterans to vet, then we have nothing to give. So please, if you know somebody, reach out, let us know how we can help.
Very well said. Thank you guys so much for coming on. It's
Sure.
really appreciated. And
For the invite.
Yeah.
of course, anytime, you guys are welcome back. You know that.
Look for a 14 shirt or a hat anywhere at any of the local bike nights, where we always have someone represented there, where they can ask questions or come up to and get more information.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And this just before I close out here, I was thinking about it. I remember when it was about a few years ago when the Texas chapter was opened, and they had the launch at the Shade Tree Saloon.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny because I was there because I've been there many times for different fundraising events for veterans. And I remember one in particular because my prosthetics doctor from the VA, who I had no clue who actually rode, walked right up to the table in his full leathers. And I was like, Colonel? Before I retired. He's like, yeah, that's what I do. I'll never look at you the same, sir, but you're so much cooler to me now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so
it's a small world when it comes to the riding community, and we all learn something new about everybody in a lot of different ways when we come across them. So,
yep. And my final thought for tonight would just be your own best advocate. And I know we tend to be terrible at that. I know I specifically am, but be your own best advocate and fight for yourself. If that's, putting yourself out there and maybe checking out a new group such as Foundation 14, if that's speaking with your VA doc, if that's requesting your military service records on eVet Rex. I cannot stress this enough. Please request your records, anyone listening tonight, because it is so important to know what's in your records. So again, thank you guys so much for coming on, and we look forward to hearing more about what you guys are doing in your upcoming events, and you definitely see me there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
All right, Aurelia, take us away. All right, guys, have a good night.
Hi, I'm Aurelia. Just a reminder, smash like, hit subscribe, and click the bell. Please give me my mommy some hearts. Yay, victories!
Yeah.